The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus entered a village where a woman whose name was Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary, who sat beside the Lord at his feet, listening to him speak. Martha, burdened with much serving, came to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? Tell her to help me." The Lord said to her in reply, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her." The Gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. How many of you are on vacation? I've got a few here. So most of you live here. You're on vacation all year, right? Well, I'm on vacation, and we have some neighbors, and I'm sure some Canadians on vacation, and we do have some people from Vietnam who are on vacation as well. And I think the theme of the scriptures today encourages us to look at vacation. That's something you don't hear about too much in the Holy Scriptures, and Jesus going away for a weekend or things like that. But I think vacation is very important for us, for the peace of mind that it entails and what it affords us. And with that going on vacation comes the idea of entertaining through the holidays of vacation, hospitality. And that's certainly woven into the scriptures today, hospitality, making people feel at home. I was talking to a friend of mine back home. He's on a very nice Jersey Shore house that his father owns. He's married, has some kids, and the entire family came down. It's a big house, and he sort of is coordinated the whole family, both sides of his family, to come down and enjoy vacation right there on the beach in Jersey Shore. And when I spoke to him, he says, "I'm going crazy." I said, "Why?" He said, "I feel like the peacemaker. They all look to me to take care of what's going on. And I go into the kitchen and they all swarm on me and they follow the kids around. And then my mother comes in and she tries to help, but she's not really helping. She's causing more anxiety. What am I going to do?" Take a deep breath, is what I said. Take a deep breath and realize what you're doing. You're on vacation. You're there to relax, to take a deep breath. And I think we saw that in the scriptures today. Maybe it was a little one-sided, but when Mary sat at the feet of Jesus, you know she took a deep breath and just relaxed, listening to Jesus, listening to his words. And I think for us, when we're entertaining and we find ourselves going all different ways and the level of anxiety grows up inside of us, and we take a deep breath and relax and realize that we have the ability to distract ourselves in our minds and go to a place of comfort or a place of relaxation, even while we're taking care of family and friends, especially if we're the hosts or hostesses of the hospitality that's being afforded. So I think it's important for us, those of us who are on vacation, and those of us who are spoiled by living in Florida 24/7, to take a piece of your day, our days, and just be at peace. Just be at relaxation with ourselves. And of course, this is the priest talking about it. There's no better person to relax with than Jesus. Hearing us, speaking to us, relaxing us. In so many ways, Scriptures parallel. Don't forget, Jesus is God made man. That incarnate piece of God made man is very important for us. And for us to look at the Scriptures and find a lesson for ourselves for today in the Scriptures. Not only today of Martha and Mary, but whenever we look at the Scriptures, to find a place that I can identify with, to find a chapter, a story, a parable that will apply to my life to put me at ease. Not always at ease. Sometimes I need to roll up my sleeves and be busy as well. And Martha certainly teaches us that in the Scriptures today. But always to be at peace and using the Scriptures as a source of information, guidance, direction in our lives. And sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not obvious. And even Martha, as busy as she was, avoided sitting and listening and relaxing with her guest. We know that was hospitality. We know it was the role of the woman who invited her. It's Martha's house. Mary's with her sister. Martha seems to have invited Jesus. And don't forget, we believe that Martha and Mary are the sisters of Lazarus, the man of the house. He's not even around. And what is Jesus doing? Jesus is sitting there as the incarnate Son of God and inviting us with Martha and Mary just be at peace with ourselves, just to be at ease with ourselves. A few moments there was a storm, but nothing unfamiliar to you in Florida, and it comes with lightning and floods, and then 10 minutes later the sun is out and it's beautiful again. It's sort of reflective of our lives, isn't it? How our lives get stormy and thunderous and troublesome. And if we take a deep breath and speak to Jesus in prayer, taking a nice deep breath and just relaxing with Jesus, we'll become like the weather, relaxed and sunny and at ease once again. So the Scriptures can speak to us in many, many ways. And today, Jesus is speaking to us with average stories so often that just send a shot in the arm, just bite us eventually. And we're hearing Martha and Mary, and they're hosting Jesus, and Martha's doing all the work. And she says to Jesus, hey, tell her to get off her butt and help me. I'm doing all the work here. And Jesus is saying, there's a time and place for everything. And she's chosen the better place. She's chosen to sit at the feet of Jesus and relax with him, to share time with him. Oh, we're talking about Martha and Mary, but we're talking about ourselves too. You realize that? How we can take the time of our day and just be at ease and speak to Jesus and listen to him and listen to how he responds to us. Now we go back to two other hosts, Abraham and Sarah, in the first reading. Again, the story of hospitality. And we hear the Lord comes past the tent of Sarah and Abraham. The Lord, singular. But there are three people in it. So we have that information, maybe reference to the personification of God as three in one. We don't know completely. The author presents the Lord goes by in front of Abraham's house, and all of a sudden there's three people there. And Abraham, what does he do? He asks them to sit down, be at ease, take a burden off themselves, and he's not doing anything different than the ordinary Semite of 4,000 years ago and even today. Common Semitic literature, common Semitic culture tells us that when a guest comes to our house, we stop everything, and it's like In Spanish we say, mi casa, su casa. The guest becomes the host. And our goal is to relax the guest, to take a burden off, to cool him off, because it's hot. But they're doing nothing unusual, you would say, for Semites. But Abraham goes that extra distance. He calls for a steer to be slaughtered. He tells Sarah, knead some dough and make rolls and curd and milk. Bring it all here. Now, you think about that. In Italian, they would say, if those three characters had to wait for that steer to be killed, to be slaughtered, to be hung for a while, and then cut, and then cooked, they could have morte di fame. They could have been dying of hunger by the time that meal was served to them. So there's something else going on in the scriptures today as we read it. It's not the immediacy of it, we're going to cut a steer and serve it and everybody's going to have a good time. It's the hospitality and the extent that Abraham went. Now, did he indeed keep his guests a few days so they could enjoy it? Doesn't matter. The hospitality is the message. And the degree of his hospitality to these guests that he recognizes as Lord, Yahweh, as God. And the guests are so impressed with him, they even ask for his wife, Sarah. Now, she's inside cooking. She's in the tent over there. And in Byzantine art, there's a beautiful icon that is called the icon of the Trinity. And it's three figures sitting at a table, and in the distance there's a little tent, and a little piece of the tent is pulled back, and that's where Sarah is. Very, very small, almost insignificant. So when the three guests talk about reciprocity, when the three guests ask Abraham, where's Sarah? She's inside cooking. As a gift back to them, and don't expect this from all your guests, they're not always going to give back. And some of you won't want what they're going to give back, by the way. What they give, they say, Abraham and Sarah are old, they have no children, and that was a hardship for them. And they were looked upon as almost outsiders to the community because of that lack of fertility. So the guests say to Abraham, we're going to pass by next year at this time, and Sarah will have a child. Now, would you mind if I asked you your age? 38. What? 78. Oh, 78. God bless. I thought you were pulling my leg. You could pull the other one too, though. Okay. What if the angel of God said to you, when I come by next year, because you were so good to me, you're going to have a baby? What would you say? No way. And as she says, no way, she's smiling. Well, that's what happened to Sarah. She was in the tent saying, no way. And as she was saying, no way, she was smiling. The name of her son will be Smile. Isaac. To show one's teeth in smiling in Aramaic is Isaac. And indeed, Isaac was born to them in their old age. As a reciprocity of God, teaching us, don't forget, the scriptures are not just nice little folksy stories about Martha and Mary, about Abraham and Sarah. They're messages from God that we're supposed to absorb and apply and understand in our lives. So God indeed rewarded those hosts, the founders of Judaism, the founders of our Judeo-Christian culture, Abraham and Sarah, with the lineage that will come with Isaac. So we move out of Isaac and we look to the Colossians letter. And we hear even there, in a weird kind of way, the need to offer hospitality. The letter of Paul to the Colossians, it's attributed to Paul. It may not be from Paul, but it's in his culture, in his theme of writing. And the author of the letter to the Colossians invites us to open our eyes to our family, not just the Christians. He's talking about Jews, but to all Gentiles. So we who are Christian have the obligation to open our doors to the stranger. Whether the stranger is an immigrant, a person from the inner city, our next door neighbor, to open our doors. This is what Christian hospitality is all about. And this is what the scriptures teach us on how to open our lives, our hearts to what hospitality is all about. And sometimes it's reciprocal. It goes both ways. And I think you all have your own stories, right? We all have stories. But I'm up here, I'm the preacher, so you can hear my story. But you often hear my stories. Okay, picture it. Jersey City, 100 years ago, when I was a little kid. Next door neighbors, Mrs. Holland. It was a black family. Mrs. Holland and my mother always traded food back and forth. And I could picture Mrs. Holland to this day. We had a long hallway where our kitchen was here and a long hallway from the front door. And Mrs. Holland would ring the doorbell and she'd say, "Rose, I have Louie's favorite for you, sweet potato pie." Oh my goodness. She was from South Carolina originally. That's all I knew about her. And the fact that she was our neighbor. So she would come in, and she'd put down the sweet potato pie. And, of course, my mother wouldn't eat sweet potato pie. She would bring out pastry. Mrs. Holland would be eating Italian pastry, the cannoli, the sfogliatelle, and all the rest, and we'd be eating sweet potato pie. See, sometimes giving is reciprocated. We were always taught as kids, you don't go to anybody's house without bringing a loaf of bread, a piece of cake, a bottle of wine, right? Otherwise, you're a spork, you're a pig. And there are those who go empty-handed. That's it, they'll have to deal with it themselves as to who they are, how they're going to be labeled. But that's what hospitality is all about. And it's nature, and it's also spiritual. Our divine nature and our spiritual nature comes together in Jesus Christ. And so often, the things that we do in life are so reflective of what our faith demands we do. How we take care of one another and how we feed one another. How we are reciprocal. And you know what? What was going on with Martha and Mary? Sibling rivalry. How many of us grew up with sibling rivalry? My brother and I did. You raising your hand. Angel's raising his hand. But my brother and I did. Sibling rivalry. Oh, he's supposed to do it, and I'm supposed to do it. And my grandmother would always be La Pacha, the peacemaker. And my grandmother would, Michael was the older one. Okay, she would say, okay, Michael, you go. And I'd be protesting and screaming, voicing my opinion. And she'd rub my head. And she'd feed me, of course. That's why I weighed. Madonna knew how big I was. She'd rub my head, and she'd say something sweet like, "Miskeen, miskeen." And I used to think that meant, special boy, you're really good, your grandma's favorite. This is what I'm interpreting. She never said that, but there's miskeen associated. Well, years later, Sister Grace, a very good friend of mine, who was Sicilian, my grandmother was Sicilian, she says, look, when I told her that story, she says, "Louis, when your grandmother grabbed you, and held you and said, miskeen, as she's rubbing your head, you know what she was saying? No, special boy, grandma's favorite. No, she was saying, troublemaker, troublemaker." And it's just how typing self-corrects when you do it on a computer. Well, if you type in miskeen, the first thing that comes up was mischief. I said, even before internet, my grandmother knew what she was doing, that I was the mischief maker. And with love, she took care of me. What did Jesus do with Martha? Come sit. She's taken the better part. Take a load off you. Sit with us. Have a piece of bread. Have a little curd, whatever they ate. Jesus is offering us patience and respect. Don't forget, Jesus is in this situation with two women. No, I know it sounds funny, but do you realize what Jesus did by allowing one of those women to sit at his feet? Only students in the time of Jesus sat at the feet of their rabbis, and only students were male. So what is Luke reminding us about Jesus? Equality, justice, beauty. Eventually, Paul will say the Gentiles, but here Jesus is giving equal rights to the men and women of society in his time. That he's allowing the woman, Mary first, Martha next, to become his disciples. Again, what's happening here? The scriptures are speaking to us. Every one of us. Young, old, Vietnamese, American, it doesn't matter where we're from, who we are, what our color is, what our language is. We're all called to be disciples of Jesus Christ. And he respects us and loves us, and what? Expects us to love and respect each other. We see this scene and we imagine that Mary and Martha are feeding Jesus. Not so. He's feeding us and them with the word of life.